I'm here with Mike Morris, the CEO at a company called Topcoder. Topcoder, for those of you who are not familiar with, it's a crowdsourcing company, and they have a global community of people who, with different backgrounds, from designers to developers, data scientists, programmers. And basically, what happens is people compete on these projects, and they get paid if they win. And essentially, then Topcoder also works with, on the other side, getting those projects in from corporate companies and mid-sized, large enterprise companies, and also even small businesses. So, Mike, welcome to the show. We were talking a little bit before we started recording about how you also know Kareem Lakhani, who was actually just a guest on this podcast a couple weeks back, and how you guys are working on some really interesting projects right now. So again, welcome. Excited to have you here.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Yeah, happy to be here in this virtual world that we are in. Thank you.
Yes. I feel like we have shifted even more virtual these days than not. Obviously, with the whole COVID-19 situation that's going on. But before we get to talking about that, I want to get a little bit more information about you for our audience, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, sure. So I'm the CEO of Topcoder. Been with the organization since it was founded, and which is about actually 19 years ago. Crazy enough.
Wow.
And my daily day is really about how do we keep this marketplace of Topcoder, running efficiently. And what does that mean? So Topcoder is at its core, it's a community of about 1.5 million technologists. So think about like computer scientists, data scientists, software designers, enterprise software developers that are in our community. And we are constantly working with large enterprises mainly, but all size companies and government organizations to find demand that they have for software talent and then matching it up with our community. And sometimes we do that in really awesome and fun ways, like we run challenges and competitions, and that kind of brings out the best of the best within our crowd and finds those people that have very specific skill sets. And then other times we have it more on kind of your typical freelance type of model, where you need somebody that has this domain expertise, this technical expertise, and we will bring them on to a project for a period of time to work on something. So my day is really spent figuring out how to make that supply and demand curve of our marketplace line up.
Gotcha. So what goes into making that happen? Like, how do you get companies who, let's say, typically will think about doing things in-house or hiring a consulting firm or some kind of firm to build a project? How do you get them to want to work with Topcoder instead?
There's a lot of reasons why, but it's let me give you a few that are to me are the most kind of important. The first one is there are certain problems that you really can't solve without a model like crowdsourcing, without a gig economy style model. And those types of problems can really get somebody hooked on using this. So an example of that would be something that is incredibly complex, right? Highly, highly complex, or something that is equally incredibly creative, okay? Where in order to get the best result you can possibly get, you need to have a lot of minds working on it, either collaborating or pushing each other to find those solutions. Kareem actually talks about it as it's a needle in a haystack problem. And if you have enough people looking for the needle, you'll find the needle predictably every single time. So we can make that happen inside our crowdsourcing model. Like one example of a project like that is actually something that we did with Harvard and with Dana-Farber. It was a solution to be able to identify the areas within, if for a patient that has lung cancer, how do you identify the area to apply radiation to help cure that patient? And it's the first of its kind use of artificial intelligence, use of computer vision to actually treat somebody right? That's the intent of this problem. And we were able to do it. We were able to come up with a solution that was proven to be more accurate than a panel of expert oncologists, right? So an algorithm that can do that, which is incredible, right? It's something that will absolutely change lives and will change the way that, it's one example of how medicine might change, but it could only have been done with the ability to find a vast amount of approaches to solving this problem and then narrow down. So we had hundreds of people compete on this. And then once we got to a place where, okay, now we generally know how to solve this problem, we then took the top competitors and had them work together to go to the final solution. And that's something, we're able to do that really quickly, really rapidly with minds from all over the globe. And it's not a big deal to us. That's just how our model runs. Those types of problems are really the ones that get people normally hooked. But the other reasons to your question would be like the speed aspects of this. So we're all used to it in our personal lives now, where we can go and on a click of a button, request a car to come to us on a GPS location and take us to another GPS location. And it's just how we've come accustomed to living in our personal lives. On your professional lives, we're a little bit slower. Enterprises are a little bit slower, but they can have that same type of speed of convenience with talent. And that's what we try to provide, enterprises that are, hey, I need to get X amount of people that know this skill set for this period of time. We're trying to make it as easy as that, one-click app on your cell phone to be able to get access to that talent. So hopefully that helps a little bit in framing that up for you, Jeff.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that's super interesting about crowdsourcing is the fact that you can do things like what you just described. The problem I've seen, especially in many enterprises, is that a lot of people are kind of stuck in their ways, right? So I guess what I'm wondering, if you could provide some information, insight on at least, is when you go to an enterprise company, you're talking to them, they're like, I don't really know. We typically do it this way, and we've had success kind of in the past with XYZ approach. What do you tell them to try to say, at least give it a shot, type of thing?
Yeah, and you're totally right. And it's been, something we've been facing for a long time. It's getting easier, and in the environment that we're in today, where people are forced to do virtual work, they are starting to realize more and more the applicability of models like this. But to answer your question, it's a they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. This is a culture problem, right? And you have to approach it from that perspective. So when we find customers that are really open to this, it does start with the top, right? Like top parts of the organization saying, hey, this is the way that I want us to work. This is the way that I want us to be thinking. And it becomes cultural within the organization. I often find myself just being an evangelist for this space, not really for Topcoder specifically, but just the space, because there's so many other companies that are doing what we do in different disciplines, right? I mean, across, different, intellectual capital domains. And it really does come down to, you've got to come at this as a pretty big transformation. It's a cultural transformation. The tools, the processes, those are really just kind of, those are table stakes. We can go into almost any organization and make this work if we have the right approach from a leadership, support, sponsorship, and ultimately the culture that will drive this through an organization. And it's been one of my biggest learnings too. Like, if a company doesn't have that, then you should probably move on to the next one. That's a little bit a little bit Darwinian, but it's true. It's like, when people are ready, then it'll be time.
Right, and for them, it may be a little bit too late, unfortunately. One of the things I was also thinking was, the company started in 2001, correct?
Correct.
Right. So, I'd imagine the shift, albeit, maybe slowly, it's probably picking up now more than, like you mentioned, ever in the company's history, I'd imagine. The shift towards, being more open to working with a site like Topcoder.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, I think, I mean, our current environment is there. I put it out to anybody that is in a model like Topcoder is that you have a duty right now to help lead people through this time. Like, whether that's making somebody comfortable with working from home, whether that is, supporting people that are having, trouble concentrating because their kids are in the background throwing balls and making noise, or whether it's, teaching them how to get work done in a different way. Like this, it's the responsibility to those companies, those individuals, to help us keep our economy going, to help us keep our companies working. And that to me is really important. When I think about, the post-pandemic era, there's going to be a lot of change. Like, Gartner is already saying, that at least 5% of the workforce will never go back to the office. I think it's going to be way more than that. I think that number is pretty far off, actually.
I agree with that. And if just look at the numbers from 2008, right?
Right.
People still hadn't gone back to the workforce, from then, or they were underemployed, where they were working at jobs that they had skills that they could do other things.
And you think about one of the things that makes a lot of organizations is the cost of the labor that they work is a big part of how they operate, right? And there's that proverbial ever chasing that lower hourly rate, which I think is the craziest thing, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I'm sure there is definitely areas of the world where cost of living is more and people need to make more money, but from a talent perspective, that talent is worth what that talent is worth. And that's how we view it. Like, you can be in Manhattan or you can be in Timbuktu. And if you're able to solve a problem that is worth X, you should get paid X. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately the more that people start to realize this, the better it will be for the talent, right? Which that's important, number one.
Right, know your value.
The better it will be for the organizations, right? They're going to be able to get things done faster, quicker. And if you get access to that talent, it takes less time. And time is money, and money is time. And I think that's going to really change a lot of people's perspective to things. And that's what I'm interested in, to see kind of that post-pandemic era, where, what are things going to look like? Well, people are going to be looking for on-demand ways to get things done. People are going to be looking for more resilient workforces, more adaptive workforces, and not in a bad for the worker mentality. I think it is a good for the worker mentality, and it creates more opportunity for people to choose work that they want to spend their time on, right? Choose work that's interesting to them, choose work where they can make the most money, have the most flexibility. So I think it is hopefully something positive that will come out of this.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I don't disagree one bit on this. And I think, one of the things that I know you're a big proponent of, as I think you've made pretty clear, is the gig, or as you call it, the passion economy. Can you explain a little bit, for the audience, just a little bit why that's so important to you, and why, we kind of highlighted some of the things just now, but why is it so important for the future, especially in this post, coronavirus world that we'll hopefully eventually make it to?
So one of my longtime colleagues, in my recollection, actually coined this term a long time ago, and he described Topcoder as a passion community, and it was Steve Rader from NASA, and what that means to me is like it's a have your cake and eat it too. And so what I mean by that is if you're a talent in our community, you can choose what you want to work on, when you want to work on it, how much effort, time you want to put into it, where you want to work from, right? It is a true kind of, as they say, some people are more about the journey than the destination. This is a true, write your own story book where you can be changing it as you go. You can be, you can really have so much more control over what you do to pay the bills. And it can become, in my mind, it really becomes that your hobby can become your work. And that to me that's nirvana. I've always been lucky enough that, I love what I do. But I don't think the rest of the world is like that or always like that. And I think that models like this really give people that choice. And if it's done correctly, and if correctly to me is like if it's done through a true marketplace model, you will always find the right supply to fill the demand. And so, people will often say, well, hey, what about that boring work that nobody wants to do? Isn't that just going to get left and it won't get completed? Like, no. If you want to figure out how to match effectively, marketplaces match effectively. That has been proven true over through decades.
History, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And that to me is like, to what's boring to some person is exciting to another person. What's boring to another
one man's trash, another man's treasure.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's right on the money. In fact, one of the things you pointed out was, turning a hobby into your work essentially. And I've been blessed in the sense that I've been able to do that as well with Best Techie, starting it so young in my life when I was 13, and kind of building it up over the course of all these years, past 16 years really, has been incredible. And the fact that I can do it for work is great. And I think presenting that opportunity, like you're discussing, to more people, really is a really wonderful thing to be able to do.
I can't believe you actually started this when you're 13. I read about that, and at some point I was going to ask you about it, but I think that is you're an example for people, for sure, absolutely. And it is a great example of this too. It's like, hey, it didn't matter what your pedigree was. It didn't matter what where you were coming from. It didn't matter what college you graduated from, obviously, right? It was what you were able to do that defined what your opportunity was. And I think that is just really neat.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I again, that's why I just find it very inspiring that to see that, you're helping other people accomplish the same thing, right? So like one of the cool things is like you have all these various different projects and contests on Topcoder, and you've built this wonderful community of, really smart, talented people in various different, let's say verticals or niches or whatever. And essentially they can, like you said, write their own story by putting in the time and the work on specific problems. And I'm sure, and I'm sure you've seen this, where someone submits work for a specific project. They like it. The company who you're working with really likes it. Let's say they win the contest or whatever. That adds another level, another notch to their belt. Now not only are they just someone on Topcoder, they've done this. It's kind of like building a resume over the course of time. And I think, that's just a really effective way of kind of building out a career.
Yeah, I think it's a profile like an athlete would have on their accomplishments. And that's part of our job in life, is to provide that profile, to provide that medium for people to show off, what their skills are. And in fact, like, so, if Google requires you to have a Topcoder profile and a Topcoder rating in order to interview for a tech job. So, That's pretty neat because it's actually a representation of what they've done, what they've accomplished. In fact, Google is also allows their employees to work on Topcoder during their working hours because it's good for them to learn new skills, right? We try to make things so yeah, we want people to be able to make money and be successful, but we also we're a learning platform. In addition to be a learning platform, we're trying to make it fun. Right? We're trying to gamify it in a way that it's fun and people can be proud of their accomplishments and they can show off their accomplishments. And that's been pretty cool. In fact, a little over a year ago, I guess, our community started a Facebook group, right, called Topcoder Nation. And it really has a life of its own. The community runs it and manages it. And it's amazing to see. It's nothing to do like on topcoder.com. There's a ton of talk about projects and work, and there's some discussions about random things that people will get into because it is a community. But on the Facebook page, the purpose of it is really, hey, this is my life as a top coder. I'm living in this country right now. I'm in Antarctica trying to find Wi-Fi so I can work on this project. I'm on every 6 months I'm moving to a new location, and here's my experience. Like these stories are just unbelievable of the people. Crazy. Yeah, it's so awesome.
I mean, it's really amazing to hear how literally it's people from all over the world solve these problems for these companies that are put up there. And you guys have winners from I don't know. Do you keep track of how many countries have won have someone who have won a Topcoder project?
Yeah, it's every country. So it's there are every country around the globe, and it's probably on a regular basis. Like we're probably close to 100 countries on a regular basis we're paying. So that's every month, like they were sending out checks all over the place, or we do it more efficiently than that, thankfully. And the cool thing, let me just tell you a quick. So since stuff's changing, we're super busy. Like anybody else, like we've definitely had some customers that have been severely impacted, but we've also had so many other customers that are like, hey, I need more. And a few things that we had recently was we had one company that came to us, Ognami, and they needed a telehealth app for the work that they're doing. They can't go out and see people anymore. They needed to move it to a telehealth app. So in a matter of weeks, we built it for them, and it's just a great story of getting something done that's timely, that's needed, and the people that got to work on that, they're getting paid for it, but they're also getting to indirectly help a ton of people, and that's pretty cool. And another one was Wizard Fit is an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, had worked with us in the past, and was is also a hot yoga instructor. And he wanted to bring in his service, now that it was getting impacted, he wanted to bring in his service online. So he came to us, we built an app for him, again, in weeks. And it's going to launch, this week or next week, it's going to launch Wizard Fit. And it's just a great story. And there's those stories in every enterprise. Every big company has 100 of these needs. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to really do is how do we find those needs and give them access to people that can solve the problems for them.
When it comes to the community, obviously, you've been at Topcoder for almost since the beginning, as you mentioned. How did you grow the community at the beginning versus how you're growing it now? Is there a difference, or how did you initially get people to want to sign up and be part of this platform?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And it's one of the things we really did right from the beginning. It was many things that we messed up. But we started, just the word community is a big piece of what we did right. It wasn't a mailing list. It wasn't a bulletin board. It wasn't a we're going to be on a pedestal. We're going to talk to everybody with a microphone. It was a community. And we established that from the beginning by, creating things that were really driven by peers. Okay. Whether that was motivationally, whether that was allowing them to collaborate or communicate, whether that was comparing them versus their peers or propping them up. And that was a big piece of it. So that was just our attitude, right? But the second thing was we had to find a viral growth element, and every successful network out there finds this. So, when you think about Facebook originally, it was really through the universities, right? Through Facebook, right? You know what I mean? And for us, we ran these for fun coding challenges, and people loved them. Just loved them. And a lot of people that went to university and studied computer science, I myself participated in the ACM competitions during school, where you got together with your friends in computer science and you got some pizza and you competed on some problems and you solved things, and it was just fun. It was so we created this arena, and we started running these problems, problems created by the community and then solved by the community. And it just attracted thousands of people to show up virtually. They're waking up in the middle of the night to log in and be with their friends and solve these problems and have fun. So that was really the viral growth to our community. And even today, it's still a huge piece of it. And we grow by about 50,000 people per quarter in our community, and it's all viral. So that's a big piece of it. And the last part of that is we launched what was called the Topcoder Open. Way back in the beginning, we said, hey, we're going to have every year, we're going to celebrate the best of the best. And it's like the Olympics for our space. And we fly in people, on our dime, we fly them in once a year. And we normally will have, I don't know, we probably had over maybe somewhere between 100 and 120 people that will fly in. And they represent their countries, they represent their universities, and they compete live in challenges with people to earn their, we great prize money. We have great sponsors that will come and kind of put their names out there, like Google and other companies. And the Topcoder Open has become a big event for our community. Like, people love to get the chance to make it to the Topcoder Open. So that was another thing that we did right from the very beginning.
That's a really interesting approach, and I really like that, because it kind of gets to the second part of the question, which was how do you keep the community happy? And I think that's one of the ways, and keeping them engaged in what's being worked on, keeping them engaged with each other. I think by itself, helps keep people happy in the community, because, if they feel siloed, or if they feel left out, or if they feel like they're not connecting with other members, then that's when you start to have problems develop. I'm wondering if you would agree with that.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, it is that it's it starts with somewhere I was reading, it starts with trust, transparency. And we're incredibly transparent. We try to be. We hold ourselves to that standard, but allowing people to ask us questions and answering them. Like, you gotta take the hard questions. You gotta answer them. We have sort of like pseudo kind of government structure of, there's a community advisory board that represents the interest, and we give them budget. We say, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that community wants to get done. We're not going to get to all of it, so we'll give you guys some budget and you can go get to them. And that's been great for us too. It's like, solving a lot of problems, giving us extra bandwidth, getting things done, keeping the community happy, making sure that we're addressing their needs. And even just recently, we ran a hackathon to see what can we do to help in this, COVID-19 pandemic. And we left it very broad, right? And normally our normal way of working is say we're building something specific. This is very, very broad. And ton of ideas. We had 117 people, I think, that came in from all over the globe, and we got 20 really strong submissions. One thing was like, hey, it was kind of a buddy app where you can have a virtual buddy while you're working from home. Somebody who's got their, just like your coworker that's sitting next to you, right? Simple idea, great idea, like just a great idea. But then others were, doing this problem that we're actually doing with Harvard and the Broad Institute on DNA sequencing, right? It's a problem that they suggested, hey, why don't you run this again? We've done it before, run it again. So that's something that we're taking to the next level. Another one was a symptoms tracker, an intersection tracker. And, that's one that we're either going to build it or contribute to it for NASCOM, an organization in India. And another one is a quantum computing problem. So we've been lucky enough to do work on quantum through Fujitsu. And Fujitsu came last year, and we ran a set of learning challenges with them to start teaching people how to write quantum solutions. And so one of the suggestions from this hackathon was, basically a protein simulation match, right? To be able to find, how do we find potential cures for this? And it's a huge problem, tons of processing, and perfect for quantum. So we don't have a partner for this yet, but we're putting it out there and saying, hey, if somebody has this hardware, maybe Fujitsu, maybe some other people would love to run this problem. And so it was just the hackathon was a really neat thing. And, people competed. We didn't have any prize money in that. That was just, people want to do the right thing for social good.
Right. No, that's great. I before we get to quantum computing, I want to talk about the community a little bit more. One of the things I wanted to ask was, so let's say I or someone else, someone a lot smarter than me, joins Topcoder, and basically they're a new person and they want to get started. How do you ensure that someone new who joins the platform is able to contribute as effectively as someone who, let's say, who's been there for a few years or several years?
So it's we have a part of our site dedicated to learning. It's called Thrive. So you would go to Thrive and you can pick the area that you're interested in. So you might be interested in competitive programming, solving those problems, those algorithmic problems. You might be interested in, high-end data science, or design, or enterprise development over all these technologies. And we provide you resources and access to experts to be able to help learn, right? So that's just one. I love what we're doing with Thrive, but we also will encourage people to get out there. So the only way to get better is starting with knowing where you stand. And so if you can get into some open competitions. So most of what we do, we try to keep open. There's some things we do we have to restrict it based on, either agreements or specific people or, depending on what the work is. But most we try to keep open where we can get people to come in and participate on those things. They get reviewed, scored, and they get that feedback. It's really rich feedback on what they did, what they could have done better. And we don't allow this for everybody, but if you are working on a problem, and let's say, you come in second place, right? You still get some compensation, right? We still will compensate you, but you also get to see what the first place winner did. And that's really valuable. Like you can see, okay, well, I see they approached it this way. And you can also ask questions. So there's a ton of, I call it competitive collaboration, right? Because there's one thing about software developers or technical people in general. What's more important to them than winning is being able to answer questions. They love to be the smartest people in the room. So people love to share their, hey, I approached it this way, and here's how I thought about it. And so a lot of that stuff is just inherent in the Topcoder platform, and that's how somebody gets started. And then as you get more proficient, you then new opportunities will open up to you. So, things like, hey, you can become a reviewer, somebody that scores, if you get to certain levels, you can become a reviewer. If you get to certain levels, you can become what we call a co-pilot. A co-pilot actually manages projects. So they get to see the pieces, how they fit together, and then work with individuals in the community to get the pieces done. Co-pilots kind of fill that gap for us. So it's almost like a career path. And then eventually there's even access to, I think that a lot of our people will prefer to choose what they want to work on a weekly, daily basis. Hey, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this. But some other people might like the opportunity to say, hey, I want to get on a project for 6 months. So we have another opportunity. It's a path called Talent as a Service, where if you have the right skills proven by all that other work that you've done on our platform, then you can get access to this work through Talent as a Service. So we try to provide variety of opportunity to people and a career path, right? It isn't just, okay, I've got to go compete every single day. I mean, we eventually want people to get to a level where a good percentage of their income is incredibly predictable. And then they can earn a lot of upside by participating in some of those other types of projects that are, that are going to be more the challenge based and the competition based. That makes sense.
That does make sense, and I think that's a really, well thought out and strategy that you have in terms of, again, we go back to the community and keeping them happy. I think that's a great way to do that, so they always feel like they're they can work towards something that they'll get promoted, within the platform, so to speak.
Yeah,
definitely. So let's talk a little bit more about quantum computing. Obviously, we're still quite a ways away from seeing large scale quantum computing, right? Or are we closer than I think? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's years, not decades.
Okay.
And this is just me speaking. So, but what I would hope to see is, I'd love to see more of these opportunities to work on quantum open up to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see that get done through our academic sectors, where you can be through universities or through organizations, research organizations, they can give people access to some of this technology, because that's where I think the most good will come out of it. And I also do fear that in the wrong hands, it could be used, for not good, right?
Yeah.
And I'm generally always an optimist, but there's a couple of things in our world that are going to get thrown out the door, like encryption and security,
Yeah.
Which I am thankful for, to be honest with you. I can't wait. I can't wait till I don't have to worry about my passwords. But I think the things that I would love to see is, and you and I talked a little bit about this before, is like things like predictive medicine, when it's not the processing power to be able to analyze individual's DNA versus thousands of other DNA samples to come up with not a forecast of what your potential medical issues might be, but a actual scientific, this is your medical issue and this is when you're going to realize it, or that type of predictive medicine, I think will make leaps and bounds through quantum. And that's an exciting thing, for us.
Definitely. So in terms of, I want to before we move on and wrap this up and get to the lightning round, I just want to talk a little bit more about the passion or gig economy and whether or not you believe it is the future of work, and as well as what does that mean for most people, especially or people who have jobs now that you know that are not part of the gig economy?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is the future of work. I don't think it's an all or nothing thing. I think that if you're a company, if you're a small company, it's very easy for you to start with this in your DNA from the very beginning, right? That hey, I'm gonna leverage expert networks to grow my company into the next unicorn. That is really easy for a small company or a startup to think like. For bigger companies, it's going to be harder, but they're gonna move towards this, or they're going to be moved out of the way, in my opinion. But it doesn't replace things like you still need to have a workforce, and it's not going to be right for everybody. Some people are going to want that, the social aspects of the normal workforce. Some people are going to want that predictability. So it won't be right for everybody. I think it will increase dramatically year over year for the next 20 years. I do think that will happen. But there are some big things in the way still. So let's not all be sunshine and rainbows, because we've got a healthcare issue, we've got a retirement issue, and these problems have to be solved on a global basis. We are working on them. We've been working on them. I'm sad to say we don't have a magic bullet for these. We call them health and wealth issues, but they have to be solved in order for this to really go mainstream. And I think it's, there are different opinions on this. I think it's kind of incumbent on the platforms to figure these things out for people. And I think that will ultimately end up really distinguishing the platforms that succeed versus everybody else. So, as industries mature, automotive industry had, hundreds and hundreds of car companies, and then there were three, right? I think there will be that type of, at some point there will be a smaller number of companies in this space, and there will be Amazons and of the world, and I think that's when these will really get solved. But insurance for people in the gig economy on a global basis, it's hard to do in one country. Try thinking about it over 190 countries, and we've run surveys. Some people don't even want it. Some people don't even know they need it. It's a huge variety of, the problem is just not simple. And I think that disruption in that space has to happen so that's kind of my point of view on that.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts, real quick, before we get to the lightning round? Do you have any thoughts in terms of the next wave of kind of gig economy jobs, or do you think it'll kind of be around, like, do you think we'll probably see more of a shift? I'm imagining that you think, of people who were designers, programmers, data scientists, and whatnot, kind of moving towards platforms like Topcoder if they decide to make that switch. But is there any other fields or areas of work where you think that the gig economy will kind of pick up where maybe it's not right now?
No, I think, areas that have the requirement for complex, high-end intellectual capital are ripe, right? And I think we need to, like I said, I think we need to solve that health and wealth issue. So you can expand that to, whether it's legal, whether it's finance, science, even in areas like sales and business development, right? I could see I could see models here. One other thing that has to happen, and the technology exists here, and again, I think the platforms will bring this to bear, but it also has to be a market shift where people start to realize that it actually is more secure than traditional ways of working. So let me explain what I mean by that. I firmly believe this, and I have for a long time, that hey, I know I can tell you who's on the other end of that Ethernet pipe, right? Because I know I can use biometrics, I can use GPS location, I can use whatever sort of credentialing that is the standard these days. I can use, but I can also use things like, well, I know how this person works and behaves. I know how this person codes. I know how this person there. I know all of these things. I have a database of things that I can compare it against. I can use artificial intelligence and AI. It can absolutely be more secure than letting somebody have a badge, giving them access to a building, and walking in and having a bunch of people sitting out there. So when that starts to become, hey, I'm more exposed with, having 20,000 people sitting in a high rise, and, than I am with the person on the other end of the internet pipe, then it starts to move rapidly. Like all of a sudden it's like, no. If I need access to a quant to give me my most complicated trading algorithms, this is how I'm going to do it. Not going to that trading floor, those 20 people are sitting together and half on Facebook, right? No, this is how I'm going to do it. So I think that's something that'll have to happen.
Definitely. And I think to even boost the fact that it's more secure to another level, like you mentioned, if you have all of your employees in one spot, God forbid something bad happens, right? You just lost. I mean, you lost all your talent, potentially more. But that could be a problem too. If your workforce is spread out remotely, that's a lot. It's a lot more difficult to happen. It doesn't it's harder to make happen, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And then there's the soft things, right? Like the diversity.
Yeah.
So diversity is a huge issue for us. And we all need to realize that we're failing in diversity. And that, in my opinion, like just I think we're failing. And when I look at, platforms, diversity, there should be no bias in a platform, right? Like by default, it's like, hey,
yep.
That connection is made without, with no bias. And I love that.
That's an incredibly hard thing to do, but I do agree.
Yeah. A lack of bias. And then I also think that diversity of thought, right? We all know, right? We have all read it before. We've all been told, hey, if you're gonna build a great team, make sure you have a very diverse team, people that bring different skill sets to your. We've all read that in our management books, and we've read it and we've heard it in our training, and we know it from the hiring experts. But you know what? It's easier to work with people that are like you because it's just easier. But platforms don't do that. They don't give you that ability to make that choice, right? That choice is gonna be sort of made for you in many ways. So that's another kind of side benefit, that diversity of thought. And then expand that to global. Like, it doesn't have to be global. We're global, but I think it's awesome when you can get somebody, a project that we worked on recently, there was a guy from Venezuela, a girl from Sri Lanka, another person from China, a person from Wisconsin, and they're collaborating on a problem for a company that's in Philadelphia. That is valuable to that person, to that company in Philadelphia. They're getting a lot of extra kind of benefit just from that global collaboration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mike, we made it through the most difficult part, hopefully of this conversation. We've now arrived at the lightning round. So when you're ready, let me know and we'll get started.
Okay, shoot.
Here we go. Would you rather be able to read minds or teleport?
Teleport.
It's a good choice. I picked the same. What's the metric you keep a close eye on for your business?
Fulfillment rate.
What's your cure for hiccups?
Hold my breath.
You find that works for you?
Yep.
I've never had much luck with that technique.
you do it right to the edge of pain, uh, it usually works.
I'll keep that in mind for next time. What's the number one thing on your bucket list?
Mm. Space.
You want to go to space? Would you want to come back, or do you want to go to like another planet like Mars and live there?
I would start with I want to be there for a launch. That's kind of a little one that I share that's actually stolen from my wife's bucket list. But I would
It
like
could
to
be a
be,
shared bucket list.
yeah, but I would like to be actually, I would like to go into space, and then come back. So,
Nice.
yeah.
All right, last one. Which celebrity would you most like to have a meal with?
Harrison Ford.
Oh, I like that choice. Okay, so no one can see this right now, but I'm wearing an Indiana Jones authentic hat while I'm talking to you.
That's awesome.
So yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. Well, Mike, I really appreciated having you on. It's been a fantastic episode. I think we covered a lot of really good topics. If anyone wants to get in touch with you after listening to this, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. So the website is topcoder.com. And you could also, my Twitter handle is MP Morris, so MPMORRIS 36.
Well, Mike, thanks again for being on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. I appreciate it.